Hey team, this is Grant David Collins and welcome to Basement Philanthropy, a place for people who do not want to wait until they're rich or retired to create meaning, impact, and connection with their money regardless of the amount. On this episode, I'm going to be introducing the giving principle of stewardship, so let's get started. One of the things that has given me a lot of fire when it comes to being involved with this work of lowering the barrier to entry for people like you and I to get involved with giving and philanthropy is the fact that 70% of all donations given to nonprofits and charity come from people like us. It's not the big businesses, it's not the huge foundations that are sponsored by billionaires. No, it is the everyday American that gives of what they have to create a better world. And one of the things that I've thought about over and over is that these big businesses and nonprofits that are key and crucial, and they do a great work in the space, they have so many resources to make sure that their giving is impactful and that it is making a sustained difference in the world. But for the majority of us and for the majority of the dollars that are given to nonprofits and charities, there is not a lot of guidance and there is not a lot of help when it comes to doing that in a sustainable and really impactful way. And so as I've been around this, something that has come up for me time and time again is the need to give really accessible principles that somebody like you and I can utilize in our everyday giving in order to create a bigger and bigger impact in the sphere of influence that we all have in this world. And so today I want to talk about the principle of stewardship and why it is fundamental to you creating the good that you want to in this world. Now, before I get into defining what I see as the principle of stewardship, I want to talk about where this came from. Right now, my parents are serving a volunteer mission for our church in upstate New York. And so about a year ago, I went out to visit them. And on our way to visit Niagara Falls, which is close to where they are serving, my parents and I had this really incredible discussion around what would become the principle of stewardship in giving. And we were talking about how there are a lot of things in this world that we can get involved with that doesn't seem like it's having a huge impact in the world and really doesn't seem like it's worth us doing. But that process of getting involved in it really creates a big splash. So one of the topics that we were throwing around is this concept of plastic bags, the ones that we get at our grocery store checkout and then take home and put under our sinks and then probably throw into landfills and all sorts of different places that these bags end up. And I was talking to my parents about how I had just purchased some reusable grocery bags, but didn't really feel like it was doing very much. And the conversation that followed really brought me to a place of understanding when it comes to making an impact in our sphere of influence first that can just create a bigger and bigger impact over time. So my definition of the giving principle of stewardship is this. Stewardship is the personal responsibility granted to each of us to care for the people, resources, and environment within our sphere of influence. Let me say that definition one more time because it's going to be really important as we move forward. Stewardship is the personal responsibility granted to each of us to care for the people, resources, and environment within our sphere of influence. This concept really pulls us forward to act when it doesn't seem like it is going to make a big difference because we feel a responsibility on our shoulders to do our part regardless of what everyone else is doing. And that's a huge part of this concept, granted to each of us, meaning that we have to believe that we are part of something that is bigger than just us. Call it a higher power or a commitment to past and future generations, or just a feeling of responsibility that comes by the sheer luck that has brought about this huge universe and a habitable planet within it that has produced you as a living creature. Whatever it is, feeling like we are responsible to something or someone or some higher power that we are connected to drives us to feel responsible for doing our part regardless of what everybody else is doing. And it really disrupts this herd mentality that we usually have towards things. Like, think about it. You buy certain clothes because everybody else is buying those clothes. Or you watch certain shows because everybody is watching those certain shows. But stewardship pulls out of us that we are not beholden to the masses. We have responsibility to something that is bigger than us to do our part. And that is why we would be willing to reach outside of ourselves and spend our resources on our time and our talents in doing these types of things to create a better world and future for our species and for the people and neighbors that we have in this world. And the beautiful thing about this approach is that it kind of pulls out of the way that barrier to entry that often leaves us on the sidelines, which is, I am not going to get involved with this unless I can see that I'm going to change the world. No, it says, hey, if I have something to do with this, if I am interacting with this space or environment, I have a responsibility to get involved with creating it in a way that would be better in the future. So, walking backwards to the example that I shared that brought this whole thing out of me as far as the principle of stewardship is this concept of plastic bags. Let me give you some more facts that might make you feel like, why would you ever get involved with that if your impact is going to be so small? So on average, Americans use almost 100 billion plastic bags a year. That is grocery bags, shipping bags, you name it, Ziploc bags. We use about 100 billion of those a year. That's about 365 bags per person. Those bags end up in our oceans, in our landfills, on our trails, in our backyards. You name it, plastic bags are there. And what makes this form of litter and pollution even more insidious is that although it takes about 1,000 years for the plastic to decompose in a way that you can't see it anymore, it really doesn't go away. In fact, it just disintegrates into smaller microplastics that have a terrible effect on wildlife, on the planet, on all sorts of things. And something that maybe is even more hard to imagine is that by the year 2050, we are projected to have more plastic bags in the ocean than the amount of fish that are swimming around. So it's a huge, huge problem. And like I was talking about, if every person is contributing 365 and you go out and get reusable bags and stop using those types of products in your life, like, what good is 365 less bags going to do in a literal ocean of plastic bags? But that's when the principle of stewardship comes in and says it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter that because of you, just this small micro percentage of bags is not going to have this same cycle. No, it says, hey, I'm a part of this problem. And so therefore, I can be a part of the solution. And it doesn't matter if anybody else is going to get involved with this. I can use my ability to choose and make an impact to be able to get involved with this. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to get some reusable bags. I'm going to throw them in my trunk. And every time I go to the grocery store, I'm going to use them instead of the plastic bags that are at the checkout station. And what you're going to find when you get involved in this way is that it starts to open up these veins of impact. It starts to prove to you that you actually matter in the world, because just doing that action every time will start to help you see other ways to maybe improve that. Like, I don't know, giving reusable bags to somebody who would use them. So now there's 2 of you, and that total numbers of bags taken out of the environment just got doubled. And then you start to see in your life an opportunity to get involved in a campaign to help remove plastic bags from your local river. And so you go out and you get some volunteers, some friends in your neighborhood to go and get involved with that. And pretty soon you have done this big, impactful, incredible thing that turns into something that is bigger and bigger. And that's really what the effect that taking stewardship and putting that out there has on our individual giving. It's this thing that over time, just like a big flywheel, like what we've talked about before, these small interactions and feelings that we can get involved start to build until that impact becomes exponential. And so, does it matter that you are taking 365 bags out of the ocean? Yes. Yes, it does matter. And it's not even because of the plastic bags. Like, that's part of it. But what's more important is that you have discovered that you can make an impact in this world. And that discovery is contagious. And that is exactly where exponential giving and impact starts in your life and in the life of people that are in your sphere of influence. As we walk around this world of ours with this concept of stewardship on our minds, that is where real grassroots change that impacts this group of 70% of all nonprofit donations starts to pick up and do something with their money, and not just put it to the best marketing campaign that is out there, but really putting in the reps to see, if I was the only person in this world doing this, is this the best place for me to get involved, or can I make a difference in this area? And if you're viewing it through the lens of stewardship, which once again is the personal responsibility granted to each of us to care for the people, resources, and environment within our sphere of influence, we can start to have that impact on the world. And that's what I'm committed to. That's why I spend time down here in my freezing basement talking to you on this microphone and camera, to be able to hopefully spark in you this understanding that you absolutely do make a difference and that you can have a big impact on this world. And as more and more of us get involved, and it's happening more and more over time because of you and what you are sharing with this community, we are going to have an impact that none of us ever imagined would happen when we all started. Well, team, that's it for me. Let's go out in the world and create good with the money in our pockets and see ourselves as personally responsible and accountable for the actions and change that we want to see in this world together. Talk soon.